Some people they're referred to as the landlord, and under the Landlord Tenant Act, they're viewed upon as the landlord in the landlord-tenant relationship. So what's actually happening here? It's not you or I. So you might be renting, let's say, an apartment building with apartments in it, and so you're down in the books as the landlord, and of course you got all those tenants. But it's not actually you that's the landlord. It's the queen that's the landlord. But because you're authorized under the Landlord Tenant Act, which is Her Majesty's legislation, so now you're acting under the authority of Her Majesty. So whatever you're doing in the name you're doing it in, John Paul Smith, whatever, or ABC Apartments, and you're the CEO. John Paul Smith is the CEO. That whole enterprise, you included, that whole situation was being done in the name of and for the Queen. So it's like you're standing in her shoes, in her stead, as the landlord. But because you're not actually the landlord, which is the Queen, the Crown, um, you're governed by the legislation. She governs you as an extension under her authority. Okay, you want to be a landlord? Well, then here and represent me as the landlord out there, which is what's actually happening here. And that's not limited to the Landlord Tenant Act, by the way. If you just think about it, anything and everything everybody's doing, whatever name you're doing it in. I'm just trying to give you an idea here of how what it really looks like at the end of the, at least in the mind, so you can see it in the mind. And yeah, so it's pretty. So anyhow, in that situation, so the landlord's the landlord, and the tenant's the tenant, and the landlord, you're as a corporation is bound by the Landlord Tenant Act, which is again is put out by the Queen, and so now you're doing whatever you're doing under the authority of the Queen. Uh, you're not the Queen, but you're doing it as if the Queen. And if you violate any of the rules, laws, rules and regulations, so on and so forth, well then that's when the weight of the law is going to come down on you, because it's specifically authorized by to do something in the name of and for the Queen under her authority, governed by the legislation. It's not something where you got a private deal between you and the Queen. You went and met face to face with the Queen and said, "Okay, here's what I'd like to do, Queenie." No, 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 no. You apply to whatever and for license permission, and so doing, now you're bound by legislation that are related to that, or that's that in principle anyhow. There again, they say ignorance of the law is no excuse, but ignorance is an excuse. If you don't know, you don't know. Maybe there's things you actually don't know that you think you know, and you act like you know, but you don't really know. So maybe if you sit back and think about things, what you actually do know, and think and clarify in your mind at least the things you don't know. Like if you've never read the Highway Traffic Act, then you have no idea what's in it. So you don't know that the law requires you to have a license. And they'll say, well, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Well, actually, yes, it is. And it's just how you play it. Wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. And I get it. Many people have tried, different excuses, if I may, to avoid having to get a license, so on and so forth, or get out of a traffic ticket, whatever, no license, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, unless somebody put that legislation right in front of your face, for whatever it is, your SSN, your SIN, passports, bank cards, credit cards, all of that sort of stuff, but the laws pertaining to that, then you actually don't know you don't know the law, and they can't prove you know the law. So remember, we talked about reclaiming your securities. Notice is knowledge, and knowledge and notice. These are two very important elements in that legislation with respect to securities. If you don't know, you don't know. So it's the same right across the board. It's not like under some acts, that you don't have to have knowledge, and other ones you do. If you don't have knowledge, you don't have knowledge. So just something else to think about there. But anyhow, so that's it with the landlord-tenant situation. You're not the landlord. Your business is not the landlord. The Queen's the landlord. You're licensed by her to do it under her authority, and therefore what you're doing it. This is buying through the son. You're the son of Canada, or the corporation is the son of Canada. It's not the father, it's not the mother. And so this is the buying through the son. So now everything you're doing, it's being done by and through you for the Queen. The only way to the father is the Queen is through the son. So you have to be the son to get there, because she can't see men. Men go to our Maker. That's what Jesus is showing us. Oh, by the way, if you're all sons of God here, if you get that graven image off your face, stop walking and walking and walking, talking and talk of a person, excuse me, back to being men and women, period. No masks. Then Jesus, this is what Jesus was showing. So once you get the mask off now, and you just go through the forgiveness aspect of baptism, so on and so forth. There's a little process there, and it's to clarify stuff and clean up the conscience as well, or get the conscience set straight. There can't be any deviation there. It shouldn't be, I don't think. But anyhow, so the only way to God, the Father in heaven, is by and through the Son. We're all sons, but if you got that mask on, you can't get to that Father. That mask will get you to the Father of the country, but it won't get you to God, our Maker. That's kind of the moral to the story there. So the way to the Father is by and through the Son, not specifically Jesus. He's not the Son. We're all sons. Does it say that in Galatians? Co-heirs with Christ. Therefore, no longer a servant, but a son. So get the mask off. You get the mask off. Well, now you're a son of God. And which is the renewing of the mind, because it's all in the mind. This mask, that's where it exists. It walks like a duck, talks like a duck, will be treated like a duck, whether or not it's a duck. Simple as that. So your identity is, for example, Canadian. So under Canadian, then you don't have that mask on, but when you present that documentation or you give a name, date of birth, so on and so forth, and they can pull up the record and say, okay, he's one of us. He's a Canadian. So now Canada's your father, your maker. That's the change of identity. So you got to you can't just walk away from that because it's in the record. You can walk away from it. You can throw the stuff in the garbage, but they got the record. You see in the record. So the cops, for example, grab you. So you don't have any identification. Okay, and they'll take you and they're going to throw you in jail. And they will go through to no end. I've been there, done that. No end to find you in the system somewhere. Information to to stick to you, to identify you as one of them, a Canadian, an American, a German, Scotsman, Irishman, Australian, whatever. All, of course, being just a reminder, fictional beings. So, yep. So yeah, so like I say, the landlord tenant thing, that's just one example. So if you're licensed and, like I said, if you're working in Canada, you need a social insurance number to work in Canada, for example. It says that to work in Canada, to live and work in Wonderland. You need a social insurance number. So if you have that social insurance number or you had that social insurance number, they know you have the social insurance number. And unless you've killed off that person dead, then they can no longer stick that stuff to you. And it's only you standing here now, man, that is, then reality is then you're licensed by the Queen to work for the Queen. Everything you're doing at work, everything you're buying, everything you're selling, it's being done in the name of and for the Queen. Or whatever your country is. You don't have a queen or a king, then your president or some, at your country who the big cheese is, I guess, is maybe a way of putting it. But to do some research on that if you're not sure. But here in Canada, it's the Queen. Everything's done in the name of for the Queen. Elsewhere, allegiance to the Queen. All powers vest in the Queen, constitutionally, and that's how it goes. Which is the power of the people, the voters. I talked about before, and she lends that to the government of the day. So we give our power to the Queen, and she lends it to the government of the day to use that power against us. That's the beauty of being a Canadian. That's what it is to be a Canadian. Not like that in the kingdom of God. It can't be. It's not like that in Canada, or that's what it is in Canada, all right. But it's not like that in the kingdom of God, where their persons aren't. So yeah. So anyhow, so when you're on the books now as an employee, you're working at General Motors, wherever, whatever. Well, then you're doing that by license, permission of the Queen. You're doing it in the name of and for the Queen, by and through the Son. You're doing it all for her. She owns it all, I guess, is all I'm saying here. You see, that's what I mean when I say you're doing it all for her. From the time you're born born into this world and this embodiment until the time you leave this world, the life goes. You own nothing. Anything and everything you do is done for the Queen. All of it. All of it. All of it. Think about it. All of it. If you do stuff that the Queen doesn't like or doesn't permit, then there's consequences. There's penalties. So, food for thought there, people. And again, don't limit the concept here to landlord tenant. It's just, what are you licensed to do? What are you doing? What's your business? What are you doing? What's your business? But you, I mean you, and if you got a incorporated business or a sole proprietorship going or something like that, then it's all the same stuff. It's all plugged in with the queen there. It's all of those things. It's all being done in the name of and for the queen. But you're the one doing the work, right? All right. God bless you. Thank you so much.